Carlos Sainz going back to Ferrari in a sensational return, according to an F1 legend and pundit. It is a possibility. We will discuss his theory and just how likely it is. Let's do a deep dive into the story. This is F1 Grandstand. I'm Tony Craig, and if you are an F1 fan, you are in the right place. Hit the subscribe button and the bell button now. Join the community and get involved. Let's get into it, and hopefully you can confirm we do not have any technical issues right now. Okay, let's give me a shout in the chat window if you can see me. And yes, Yvonne, it's live, coming at you live into your living room. Okay, Carlos Sainz. Sainz was informed early last year that he would be forced to make way at Ferrari for Lewis Hamilton, and he became hot property with multiple teams scrambling for his signature. Sainz won 4 Grand Prix races with Ferrari and finished on the podium 25 times, and he was heavily linked with the likes of Alpine and Sauber, which will be rebranded Audi F1 for the F1 2026 season. Now, that was all happening before he opted to sign a multi-year contract with Williams. Now, Sainz has struggled at Williams this season, finishing no higher than 8th across his first 14 appearances and trailing his teammate Alex Albon by a massive 38 points. Did he make the right choice going to Williams when he could have joined Sauber? Well, Sauber have enjoyed a revival under new boss Jonathan Wheatley, who was the former Red Bull sporting director, because we saw 37-year-old Hülkenberg collecting his first podium of his career after 14 years in F1 at last month's British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Now, Sauber's progress ahead of next year's rules reset has led to suggestions that Sainz picked the wrong option by signing for Williams in July 2024. Now, when Carlos spoke to the media at the recent Hungarian Grand Prix, Sainz admitted that he wasn't so sure that Williams was the right choice for his career 1 year ago. But remember I said about an F1 legend? Well, enter my guy, Johnny Herbert. And if you're old enough to remember him, so do I. And here's where the story is coming from. Johnny has been joining up some dots. Johnny Herbert, the former F1 driver, he was in Benetton, he was Michael Schumacher's teammate. He's also a Sky F1 pundit and an FIA steward. Now, he claimed that the Spaniard, Sainz, could make a sensational return to Ferrari to replace Hamilton in 2026. But why, Johnny? Why? Well, I need to bring this guy in. So, Hamilton, we all know, has endured his first start to any F1 season this year, 2025. He's failed to register a podium in any race this season. Now, the 7-time world champion has appeared to cast doubt over his Ferrari future during a difficult weekend in Hungary, where he qualified a distant 12th on a day where his teammate Leclerc set pole position. Now, after repeatedly referring to himself as useless, Hamilton suggested that Ferrari should consider replacing him before alluding to potential trouble behind the scenes at Maranello. Hamilton said, "There's a lot going on in the background, and that's not great." Back to F1 legend Johnny Herbert. So Herbert believes Hamilton's comments could open the door for a mutual parting of ways at the end of this season, potentially allowing Sainz to slot back into his old seat alongside Leclerc. He said, "When Hamilton said things are going on behind the scenes, I'm not sure what that means, but one way of reading it is that there has been talk already about changing the driver. Is that something that's already been spoken about? Maybe it's been mentioned if things don't get better, you need to get yourself in a position where you've got the next driver ready for next year." Maybe Hamilton and Ferrari are both saying that if it doesn't work, the time is here, the time has come to part ways. And now, I don't think it would be Verstappen chosen to replace Hamilton, but this is where Herbert's joining up some dots. But I saw a little interview with Carlos Sainz, and when asked if he would go back to Ferrari, he replied, yeah, maybe. Carlos was doing an absolutely brilliant job and was really keeping Charles under control. He's still young. He's doing a good job, even if he's struggling with Williams a bit. But we know how good he was when he was at Ferrari. True, Sainz did do a good job at Ferrari. He was far closer to Leclerc than Hamilton is, but we need to go back to some further comments that Sainz was saying, which really Johnny Herbert may have ignored. So Sainz said, when I took the decision to join Williams, Williams were 9th in the championship, and there was less certainty that maybe Williams was the right choice in my career. Now, though, I think a year on, I'm very confident of that decision. I'm very glad, looking at the progress the team is showing and the momentum we're building into 26, looking at everything that's been done in the team into 26, 27, 28, which is why I came to this team. I didn't come to this team for the results in 25. I came for the potential of 26, 27, 28. I think the more I see that's being done and the more I'm with the team, the better it looks. At the same time, there's a lot of things to work on and to improve on as a team. There's a very long list of things that we're trying to get through and work on, but I'm happy with that decision. And I think we just need to keep our head down. And at some point also, the results of 25 will give momentum into 26. Now, he is right with what he's saying, because we've seen the Williams go from a 9th place team to a 5th place team in the Constructors this season. So when you think about it, I think Johnny Herbert, as much as he's a legend and he's on telly, he's with Sky One, and he's stirring the pot and trying to say Sainz could go back to Ferrari, and the press have picked up on it. But the truth is, first of all, you got to understand, Sainz has got a contract until the end of next year at Williams. He's looking at it as a long-term project. That's why he chose Williams. And Hamilton, just because he's hit a little slump, it does not mean that Hamilton is giving up. I don't think Hamilton, even on a mutual agreement, I don't think he's going to go to Ferrari and say, look, my career's been shocking this year. My season's been shocking this year. I don't want to do 2026. There's no way he's going to do that. There's no way a 7-time world champion is going to leave Ferrari at a time when Ferrari are going into a whole new era of F1 in 2026 with completely new cars, completely new powertrain. There's no way he's going to not do next season. No way. Plus the fact he's on $60 million a year. Don't forget, I've talked about it this week, Hamilton's got a clause in his contract which gives him the decision if he's even going to drive for Ferrari in 2027. I think what's happened is there's a lot of people who've been jumping on Lewis Hamilton because of his comments after the Hungarian Grand Prix. Yeah, he was shattered with his performance, but there's a lot more going on at Ferrari. And I think Hamilton, when he says things like there's more going on behind the scenes, I think what he's saying is that politically at Ferrari, I think what he's basically saying is Charles Leclerc is the golden boy. And if we think about all the news that have come out this week, about Pierre Gasly talking about Red Bull and Yuki Tsunoda saying about Red Bull how they were treated differently to Max and how they were basically using the second driver seats as test setup cars for Max. I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised. There's been some shenanigans over at Ferrari that Hamilton has been getting test setups compared to Leclerc's setups. I honestly think that could be a possibility. And I think that's what Hamilton's referring to subtly in his interviews. I'm going to go to the chat. So let's see what we've got. So Yvonne, Lewis thinks he's Fernando. He's staying in F1 for a long time, but Fernando is Fernando. Yvonne, I can tell you're a big Fernando Alonso fan. And he is. And do you know what about Fernando is? That there's no messing with Fernando. He says it how he is. He's just there to drive, isn't he? He's just there to drive. He hasn't got fashion labels and record labels and all the other businesses that I think Lewis has got. And I think that stuff gets on people's nerves. But Fernando, yeah, solid guy, head screwed on, great racer. And he'll race until he kick him out or until he decides that he's done. Eric. Hey, nice to see you all in the chat, by the way. Lovely to see you, Eric. Lovely to see you, Gemma. Lovely to see you, Yvonne. Eric, yeah, it's so odd. Eric says it is so odd they would spend the money on Lewis and then seem to prefer Leclerc. Right, Eric, that's a great point. So I spoke about this in one of my earlier shows this week. The interesting thing about the Leclerc deal is the length of his contract. So Leclerc is on less money than Hamilton, but his contract is until 2029. He's got the longest F1 contract out of all the drivers on the grid. So if Ferrari are going to commit to a driver for that many years, then do we think they're paying all this money for Hamilton really to help create a better car? Because Hamilton is brilliant at developing cars, apparently. Although, like Yvonne pointed out, he's been in a slump since 2022 because the Mercedes ground effect car they have never built a car that's good with the ground effect era. They just haven't. But when they did the engine change in 2014 and Mercedes, when they went from the glorious V8s to the turbocharged V6s, Mercedes are great at building engines. And because the dominance of the Mercedes car was all about the engine, not really the aerodynamics, and ground effect wasn't even a thing. Then we get in the ground effect era. Mercedes did not build a car that was good enough, did they? They've never cracked it. And Lewis never came to terms with this ground effect era of cars. But on Lewis Hamilton, by the way, and I think Toto Wolff said this, and it was a brilliant point. Lewis Hamilton, his driving style, his experience is going to come into play into these 2026 cars, because one of the key elements of the 2026 car is going to be about managing the battery power. And it's going to take, if you're a wily old fox racer like Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, where your decisions to conserve battery power, so where you push the boost and it's there for you, and it's like managing tires. The drivers like Hamilton and Fernando Alonso can manage tires better than, say, like a Kimi Antonelli, or probably maybe even a Max Verstappen with the way he drives. So, and it's going to be the same in these 2026 cars. They're going to a 50-50 ratio of internal combustion engine and electrification. And it's really going to favour smart drivers. Now, the balls to the wall, aggressive driver might be quicker over one lap, but over a 70-lap race where management of the car becomes far more important than a balls to the wall approach and the car just being built to last, if you like, we might see drivers like Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, with all their experience, really doing very, very well. And that's what Toto Wolff said. And that's what I think. Oh, Gemma, you're having some problems with the tech. I think you need to probably get faster broadband. Would be my advice. I think, is everyone all right? Everyone hear me all right? And are you getting the stream loud and clear? So Eric's good. Yvonne's good. So Yvonne, I'm going to go back to the chat. So Yvonne says, even if I'm a big Fernando fan, me and other Fernando fans are more level-headed than Team Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, you know, it's funny, isn't it? I think that the F1 fans do have they're the type of fan that likes a type of driver, I think. Unless you're a Senna fan, because I don't know anybody that wasn't an Ayrton Senna fan. Like, he had it all, didn't he? He was brave, he was quick, he was cocky and arrogant, but he engaged you. Have any of you ever watched the Senna documentary? It's called Senna. If you haven't seen that documentary, do not pass go. Before you go to bed tonight, you need to watch that documentary. It's absolutely brilliant. Oh yeah, Eric, he loves it. I agree. Isn't it good? I apologize if I'm getting if you get any glitches. I'm getting a few technical issues here actually. It's saying I'm not live. Hopefully I am still coming out live and it's working fine. I think Eric can still see it, which is good news. But yeah. Yeah, the Senna documentary. Oh my gosh, Eric, I could watch it over and over and over again. It's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I tell you another good documentary as well. I don't know if you've seen it, but the Damon Hill documentary on Sky TV right now is brilliant. Honestly, it's absolutely brilliant. Because I didn't realize just how hard it was for Damon Hill in a Williams. Frank Williams didn't expect Damon Hill to win a world championship. He literally was trying to find another number one driver over and over again. He brought Mansell back. Obviously, Senna came to Williams. Alain Prost. Like, he just didn't think Hill had it in him. It was like the whole team was not rooting for him. Yeah, very interesting. So the Damon Hill documentary, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, hopefully you're all getting me loud and clear and the stream is working fine. Oh, what? And Eric, you still got your Ayrton Senna's Monaco Grand Prix for Sega Genesis? Yes! I used to have it. Do you know what? I'm showing my age now. I used to have a Sega Master System. Do you remember those? Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And then I got a PlayStation. Yeah. I even had a Commodore 64, thinking of gaming. Commodore 64, and I used to have an F1 game on that, and it was brilliant. The graphics I thought at the time was superb, super blocky. But yeah, it was very good. Yeah, the Master System is underrated. I love retro gaming. I think I've still got my Commodore 64 up in the loft. Honestly, I should get it out because it was a brilliant game. And do you remember the game Outrun? What a game! What a game! Obviously, I digress. Maybe that should be for another channel. Retro gaming would be good fun. But yeah, so going back to actually tonight's story. Listen, I'm getting lost in the chat. But going back to tonight's story, Carlos Sainz. So, what do we really think could happen? His contract runs out at the end of 2026. He has not had a good season so far. We know that at Williams. The thing that really, I think, is the most worrying thing is when his teammate Alex Albon is having a really good season, and he's what, 38 or so points behind. That's a big difference, and the golden rule in F1, like, you need to beat your teammate, and you got to be close. You've definitely got to be close to him, and unfortunately, yeah, he's not. He really isn't. So with all of that, it's a difficult time on paper. But the reality is, Vols, obviously, the principal at Williams, is such a big fan of Sainz. And I think they get on well. And I also think that if you look at what Vols has done since he's joined the team, he's taken a 9th place Williams team and he's brought them to a 5th place team at the moment, which really among the best of the rest, right? After the top teams. And he's had his fingerprints. And don't forget, Vols, he is an engineer. He's not like a Christian Horner type character who was a team principal. And he used to actually be a failed driver, but he wasn't an engineer. Now, Vols is an engineer, and if he is he's almost like an MIT superstar. His brain is incredible, and he's had his fingerprints all over Williams's 2026 car. And Williams will be running the Mercedes powertrain. So I think Sainz believes, from what he can see what's going on in the factory, that Williams car in 2026 is going to be even better than people might realize. We might see a return to the glory days for Williams, because if you're old enough, like I think maybe some people in the chat might be, maybe Eric's with me, that remembers Williams in the 90s, Nigel Mansell, Red 5, you know, Damon Hill, David Coulthard. Now maybe some of you remember the Williams and Jack Villeneuve. Williams were a great team in the 90s. They were brilliant. Frank Williams was a genius. And if you're nostalgic, we'd like to see, Williams competitive. And next year is going to be interesting, because every time there's a major rules change in F1, which basically means we're talking about a whole new platform of F1 cars. Well, that's what we're going to have in 2026. And every time we see that, we see the reality is that teams like Alpine, who are dead last, may improve a huge amount and be the 5th best team on the grid. And teams like Aston Martin are going about all the time, to sign Adrian Newey, who's now an owner at Aston Martin, the most successful person in the history of F1, won more constructors titles and behind more drivers titles than anybody else on the planet, is designing the car. You have to believe that Aston Martin are going to bring an awesome package if Honda provide a good power plant. And why shouldn't they? Honda have won constructors championships, with their engines. So there's no reason to think that Aston Martin package isn't going to be fantastic. So yeah, you're right, Eric. The 90s F1 was a great era to watch. And the thing about, look, I'm all for like safety in the sport, but God, those guys were brave. I mean, the 90s F1 drivers, 80s F1 drivers, those guys were brave. They did not have all of the safety. The tracks weren't as safe. The cars weren't as safe, And if you look at the 70s, this is a fact that I mean, it's tragic, but they would lose, I think it was 4 drivers a year in F1. That's how dangerous Formula One was. If you ever go and watch those races, and you might think as well that the cars today are so much faster than the cars back then. No, those cars were still doing nearly 200 miles an hour with no safety features and with gear sticks, right? None of this flappy paddle nonsense, no computerized shifting, and no computers in the car at all. In fact, Williams were one of the first to introduce sophisticated computers and it was Adrian Newey that did it, and that was the active ride suspension in 92, 93. And then Williams dominated, didn't they? So those guys, they were just man and machine at the truest, rawest form. They were glory days. You should go back and rewatch some of those races. 70s, 80s, and 90s. Absolutely unbelievable. Yes, everyone needs to watch Grand Prix with James Garner. Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant film that was. Superb. Yeah. That's funny. Cars in the 90s were more technology advanced, but good old Mad Max Axum. I know what you're talking about. So what Yvonne's talking about there is, in the 90s there was these massive technological advancements in F1, but the problem was, because the rules because some teams, we didn't have funding caps at that point. So the most wealthy teams with the most money were able to develop the best technology. And so the gaps between the teams was pretty big. So you would have a team like Williams dominating with their technology. And I think it's a shame, really, because in those days when it was like, well, however much money you could raise for your team was as much as you could spend on your development and everything else. Well, then, yeah, of course, that's an advantage. But what we miss out now is that the technological advancements that came from those cars, Yvonne, which rolled out into normal cars on the road, from inertia seat belts to carbon fiber to anti-lock brake systems to dual clutch, whatever you want to say. It all came from Formula One technology. But now obviously things are different. They have to try and keep the teams even as much as possible. So they've had to basically cap all of the spending, cap the wind tunnel time, and make it so if you're in Formula One, you're pretty much running with the same types of budgets. And I understand why it's like that. But yeah, it's a whole different world back then. It was wild. I hope you can still see me, because obviously I can see that my stream is doing some crazy stuff. So hopefully it is still streaming to you. If you can let me know in the chat, that'll be good. I've got it frozen on my face in a very, very weird position. No idea what's going on. But yeah, so going back to Carlos Sainz, I think, yeah, I think he's committing his future to Williams. And as long as Williams commit themselves to him, I think Sainz is going to be there for, well, he's there for 26. If he does okay next year in this new era of car, he'll be there for 27, 28. He's still a young guy. I think he's only 26. Plus, he is, let's be honest, I'm sure some of the ladies in the chat will understand that Carlos Sainz, he is a sponsor's dream, isn't he? You know, a lot of my friends who are female F1 fans all seem to like like Carlos Sainz. So yeah, he's gonna stay. So it's Johnny Herbert stirring the pot. He's joining up all these dots, and because of that, the comments from Hamilton, and because of the little, I mean, he's probably thinking these are little Easter eggs and clues about what's going on at Ferrari, and he thinks that discussions are already happening that that Hamilton might want to leave Ferrari, and if he does, where do Ferrari go? And the thing is, in order to make room for Hamilton at Ferrari, letting go of Carlos Sainz, who was doing pretty well. He was a good number 2 driver, and there wasn't really anything majorly wrong for him at Ferrari. So it was purely to to make way for Hamilton. So yeah, that's the story. And yeah, Johnny Herbert basically getting in there and stirring up that pot. I think that's what I think's happening. I'm sorry about. I hope my stream is still okay for you. I have no idea. It's Gemma pointing out, but hopefully my stream health is all right. But there's some weird pausing going on. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. But bottom line is, Johnny Herbert, you're wrong. Carlos Sainz is not going to be going to Ferrari. Not next season anyway. There's no way that's happening. So yeah, but it is an interesting story. So yeah, you can see it out there. It's a good one. Yeah. So Yvonne, going back to the chat, cars in the 90s. Oh no, I've done that one. Oh, Yvonne, yeah. Let's hope Team Lewis Hamilton don't get to Johnny. Oh, they will. Yeah, they will, because Planet F1 covered this story today as well. And yeah, they'll be. Lewis has got, like everybody, he has got hardcore fans that want him to win this 8th world championship. And I think that Lewis Hamilton is a divisive character in his own way. You can't deny that he is a phenomenal driver. Like, he really is. He's a phenom. Okay, he dominated with Mercedes from 2014 to, what was it, 2021. Dominant. Yeah, look, we can't deny that. And the car helped, obviously. But he is still, I believe, a world-class driver. Is he the best in the world? Well, today, no, I don't think he is. Not in this current era of cars. It's obviously Max. But will Max's driving style work in 2026? Now, we don't know. Max is super aggressive. He likes his cars super twitchy. The ground effect era obviously suited Max. But let's see how he does in the new cars in 2026. And also that Red Bull car with what we can only be described as an experimental powertrain. Red Bull Technologies were formed, 18 months ago to develop an engine with Ford. Well, where's your pedigree for developing engines? I know Ford have got it, but it's just all experimental. They've lost the best car designer in the world in Adrian Newey. Like, they've lost Wheatley. The Horner's gone. Like, what does that team really look like now? We don't know. We don't know. Red Bull we might see a few years of a really poor Red Bull car. Hence why Max was on Toto's boat this summer break. And if you haven't watched that video, make sure you go and watch it after this. What were they plotting? So yeah, that's the reality. So I think the bottom line is that Sainz ain't going to Ferrari. If Lewis leaves Ferrari at the end of next season, I'm gonna tell you who the most likely Ferrari driver will be. I'll tell you right now. It's not Max Verstappen. It's not George Russell. It's Oliver Behrman. Ooh, big shocker. Yeah, it's Oliver Behrman. I would place a bet, actually, that in 2027, if Lewis is no longer at Ferrari, and this is early for me getting on this, Oliver Behrman will be the Ferrari number 2. That's my guess. And if it's not, no, I'm sticking with it. I'm committed. I think 2027, it'll be Ollie Behrman. His relationship with Ferrari is very, very good. He's driving the Haas with the Ferrari powertrain next year, and his contract's up at the end of 2026. And I think that works perfectly for Ferrari, because I think they've already earmarked Ollie Behrman as a number 2 driver at Ferrari. Leclerc is going to be the number 1 driver. He's got a contract all the way through 2029, so he's going to be the number 1 driver. But Oliver Behrman does another year at Haas using the Ferrari powertrain. Oliver Behrman will be the next Ferrari driver. And everyone's going to say, what about Shu, the test driver? He will get a drive in F1, but I don't think his first drive will be on the grid in a Ferrari. That's my opinion. So that's what I think. 2027, it'll be Ollie Behrman. So you've heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think? Yeah, you're right, Eric. Yeah, Red Bull is just one big bag of unknowns for next year. So we don't know. But going back to keeping it on point for today's story, yeah, so Johnny Herbert talking about he thinks that Carlos Sainz could be back in a Ferrari in 2026 because he thinks Hamilton and Ferrari have made some sort of agreement that if it doesn't get any better for Hamilton, that he will leave Ferrari by mutual consent, and Ferrari would go back and try and entice Sainz back into that Ferrari. It is not going to happen. It just isn't. It's just not going to happen. Sainz has got a project at Williams. He's going to stay there. He's going to do better than he did last year, this year, next year. I'm sure of it. Absolutely sure of it. And I think we could see him at Williams for 2 or 3 years. And I think we're going to see a better Williams car. So bring him. So if you don't know, so Johnny Herbert, I love the guy. I do. He's an interesting fella. He's got some, excuse me, he's got some great stories about the 90s Formula One days. But unfortunately, on this occasion, Johnny, I do not think that's going to happen. Sainz will be in a Williams in 2026. So yeah, that's your news today. I really hope we've not had too many Too many technical problems. I think we might have had a few on the stream. I think Gemma struggled a little bit. Hopefully it went out okay. No guarantees because it all went weird here as well. But hopefully it wasn't too bad for you. Maybe tomorrow at 8 o'clock, we won't have them technical gremlins. But I do love doing these shows in the evening. You know what I like about it is our little community is getting better and better. I love it. It's so fun interacting in the chat window. I absolutely love it. Thanks so much for watching F1 Grandstand. Please like, comment, join the community, subscribe and hit the bell so you keep up to date. And like I've said before, it makes a massive difference to the success of the channel. And I'm really, really grateful to all of you. And honestly, the chat really makes the show. You guys make the show, and that's what I want. I want this community to be really a back and forth between all of us, and a place where we can all hang out and chat about our favorite sport. So thanks again, loved having you there. Gemma, LP700. Oh, LP700, nice, thank you, great to see you in the chat. You're a bit late to the party, mate. You're a bit late. Make sure you tune in tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Gemma, thank you for being part of it. Eric, thank you for being part of it. Yeah, I will be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock. I will see you all then. Ta-ta.